What's good, you guys? Daniel Cruz here. We back with Cook with Cruz. And just as I promised last week, today we're going to be going into detail on structuring and how I feel and approach that. Rather than pull up a few beats and just show you just how I structured them out, I'm actually going to pull up a few songs that I've produced. You may have heard them in previous episodes. I've went over all of these songs before, but I'm going to go back and dive into these project files here so I can better explain my thought process on structuring the beat, which ended up being for the final record. So yeah, I'm not going to pull up some beats and show you some cliche, cookie cutter structuring tutorial, nothing like that. I'm going to really try to help you become a better producer through structuring, or a songwriter if you're a songwriter as well. So if you're looking to, play some beats somewhere with an artist, sell more beats, this video should really help you out if you're struggling with how to structure your beats. It's just going to help you have a better foundation and full instrumental ready for the artist so they can record to it. So I got a lot I want to talk about today about that. It's coming in this video. Let's check it out. Alright, so jumping right into it. First things first. Before you even worry about structuring your beat, set a foundation first. Get some melodies together, whether that be a sample, whether you're composing something. Get a foundation ready, get some drums ready, something to work with so you can identify the genre, the subgenre of the record you want to produce here. I say that because not every song is going to have the same exact structure. So once you get your foundation going, you can start to get a feel for the genre of the beat here or your song so you can better structure it out for the best of it. So once you got your beat really going, this is where it's time for you, if you're a producer, to really be a producer, and you have to feel what the structure of the beat is going to be. This part might be kind of hard for me to explain, but you're just making a beat, you got some melodies going, a little bit of drums. You start to think, all right, how should the beat start? How should the intro be? Then should the verse come first or the hook come first? Those decisions you make are going to be heavily based on the type of beat you're making, how much instruments you're using, and so you got to really feel for what should come in first. And I feel like that's the biggest problem here for us as producers. Sometimes we don't know if the hook should come in first, should the verse come in first. You really just have to imagine the artist already being on your beat. If imagine some random artist, like how would they come in? What would sound best for them coming in on your beat? So now back when I said about the genres and how it can depend on the genre, there are some formulas you can go by. Like trap music, for example, a lot of times the hook will come in first, and that is because the beat's very simple. You just want that drop, and once the drop hits, that's usually like the hook. More hip-hop, progressive type records, usually you want to start with the verse coming in first, again because it's progressive, let it build up. So with that being said about formulas, I highly recommend you go back and study your favorite songs, or study songs that best fit your style. Really go in, not just listen and feel the song, but actually go in and see, does the verse come in first? Does the hook come in first? And then maybe from there you can determine why the producer decided to have the verse or the hook to come in first. And then ask yourself, on that same song, let's say the verse comes in first, try to imagine the hook of that song coming in first. It probably wouldn't sound good at all. So I'll go in, really study some songs, really just write it out. Okay, the verse came in first. How long is the verse? 16 bars, 12 bars? So that, I think, is going to help you a lot if you really just study your favorite songs on structure. So that's my little intro there, explaining a little bit about structure in the background and how I feel about it. Let's go into this project here. This is actually the project file for Black Hearted from Ozzy. If you haven't seen, I did a video breaking that one down on a previous episode. Go check that out if you haven't seen it already. So I'm going to go into this project file and I'm going to explain my thought process as I was making this beat. So back when I said about foundation, get your foundation first. This part of the beat I'm going to play right now was my foundation. I was just really just building up to see what I can make. So once I had that, I either had the decision to make the hook coming first or the verse coming first. So for that foundation there, I really wanted that to be a part of the intro. I like my intros to be very movie cinematic like. So because it's big right there and there's a lot of chords going on, it's for sure going to sound best if I tone it back down and start with the verse first and then rebuild back up for a hook. So with that being said, this is what I came up with to come in for the drop for the verse. So that right there is how I made it drop into the verse. I know we really haven't gotten to like the meat of structuring, but I really believe the intro and how you come in with the song is super important. First impressions in music are like the most important thing in my opinion. So yes, how you come in with your beat is a very important part of structuring that I feel. You don't want to ruin the whole beat, because you know, if I would have made the hook drop on Black Hearted, y'all probably wouldn't have liked it that much. So with that being said, let's rewind a little bit for the intro. I think for the intro of your beat, of your song, it doesn't have to be crazy big, but use something from your foundation that's like super catchy, that's going to catch the ear. Again, first impressions are very important, especially if you're playing a beat for an artist or something like that. They're not going to listen to no more than 10 seconds if what you're starting the beat with is not catchy or anything like that. Also, you don't have to overthink the intro or anything. Just take something from your foundation, the catchiest part of your foundation, put that up front. Usually that'll work. This one, I just put the sample up front. Who doesn't like a dope sample? So there's that. And for verses, pretty straightforward. They're usually 16 bars, especially for something down the line of this. If you don't know how to count bars, just look up a video on YouTube. It's pretty easy. And throughout your verses, usually just have fun, break down your instruments from your foundation. For this verse in particular, for Black Hearted and records I do like this, I like to build it up. As you can see on the first part of the verse here, I just really start with a snap, and then the drums come in and it further develops. So there goes the verse. Pretty straightforward. So after the 16 bars, I gotta come up with a hook here. It can get a little tricky because, you know, towards the end of my verse, it's already pretty full. So now I gotta make that transition from the verse into the hook without it making it feel like it's still the verse, because it's so full and big there. So it's best not to overthink these kinds of things. As you can see, I did it here. Pretty much all I did was just take the entire intro and put it as the hook. And I did this based off of just my imagination on how the final record's gonna sound for the artist. A lot of times for the hooks on these type of records, sometimes the hook will be, you know, kind of ambient open. So as I was making the beat for the hook coming in here, I was just imagining the artist coming out of the verse and really just kind of spitting something, you know, flowy and poetic. So in order to achieve that, you know, I dropped out everything, all the drums and everything, and just kept the sample, and then just brought back my foundation from the intro, and then from there just go right back into the second verse. So once you have your hook done, you can pretty much rinse and repeat for the rest of the song. The rest of it should be downhill. You can make some adjustments. Again, don't overthink it. If it sounds good, don't fix nothing. There's nothing to fix if it's not broken. So there goes how I structured Black Hearted, explained my thought process, what went through my head with that. Again, don't forget what I said earlier about going back and listening to your favorite songs if you're struggling. Really just study those, take notes on them. I guarantee your production level is just going to go way up, because you're going to understand how to approach, you know, structuring out your beats from there on. Alright, now I'm going to pull up another song here for you. We're going to completely switch genres here to get you a better idea of how structuring could be different between genres. So here I just pulled up the Colors record that I did for Devon Terrell. It's not going to be the full beat. He did some additional production on it, but for the most part, this is it. This is also a pop record, and the structuring of this beat is going to be completely different than what we just seen in Black Hearted. I also want to note too that I built this beat around his acapella. It's actually a reproduced record I did for him. So if you're a producer and you ever have the opportunity to reproduce a record or build a beat just around an acapella, I highly recommend that. Your production skills are going to shoot through the roof, not only just on structuring, but just producing in general, you're gonna know right away. Especially if you're adding too much to your beats, you're gonna know right away that you're adding too much, because you know the vocals aren't gonna have room to breathe. It's just overall good exercise, good practice. If you can, reproduce some records for somebody or just build around some acapellas. I guarantee that's gonna help you out. But anyways, starting this record off, I knew it was gonna be a pop record most of the time. And by most of the time, I mean like 99% of the time. For pop music, it's very progressive. It's going to build up. So the verse is usually going to come in first. And then if you notice for pop, like the hooks are like just super big and huge. It's just going to sound weird if you start a pop record with the hook coming first. It's just going to be in your face way too fast when you got to build up to that. So that's already in my thought process on how I want to approach it. And it's already pretty much structured based on what Devon wrote for his acapella here. Again, like the Black Hearted record, start off with, you know, the base of your foundation, something catchy that's going to catch the listener. And as I already mentioned, don't overthink it. It's not supposed to be complicated. This is what I have for the beginning of this record here. So now for records like these, just like the previous one, you want to keep your verses about 12 to 16 bars. The verses are usually going to go by quick because they're more up-tempo. So for this one in particular, we just had straight 16 bars.
Good morning. What side of the bed you woke up on today? Yeah, you seem brighter than you appeared yesterday. I know at work they stress you, but you get paid. No matter what they say, you get that green. You don't let no one get in between us. Feeling blue, girl, go put on that red dress. You're shining gold, I call you my ex.
So there goes the verse there, and as you can see, we're just building it up in the middle of the verse there with the drums. So now for the really important part that comes in pretty much all pop music and pretty much all R&B music is a pre-hook. This is basically a small drop after the verse that's going to build up to the hook. So not a lot of people make pop beats. That's cool. I don't make a lot of pop beats. It's like my first pop record. But for a lot of people making like straight up R&B beats, if you're not structuring some type of pre-hook in there, it's going to probably be struggling for the songwriter, the artist, to write to that beat. A lot of singers want a pre-hook. It's just going to give them that feeling. It's going to really help them build up to the hook that they want to write. So pre-hooks are usually about 4 to 8 bars before the hook. So there's going to be a section after your verse where it kind of drops out in order to build up for the hook there. Again, if you need some more clarification or just need help with pre-hooks, as I mentioned before, go back and actually find some of your favorite R&B songs and pop songs. Go back and actually listen to them, and you're going to actually hear that they do have pre-hooks. Sections before the hook where it drops out and then builds back into the hook. And for songwriters, that's usually like an intro hook. So if you notice, like after the second verse of this song, the pre-hook is gonna basically repeat almost like a second hook. So pre-hooks build up to the hook, and it's another catchy part that is repeated just like the hook. So for this song in particular, I knew I wanted the beat to drop out and be dramatic and then rebuild back up. So I really just wanted to cut out all the drums, and I added a chord progression on some keys here along with some sustained bass, and this is what I got.
Let's get in the mood. I want to know who I'm talking to. Show me a different side. I'm lost in your colors.
So hopefully after listening to that, you can better understand what the pre-hook is. It's definitely something needed in pop and R&B. And if you actually heard the actual final song of this, you'll notice that that pre-hook section repeats. So it's almost like an intro hook to the actual hook. Almost like extending the hook to like 12 bars if you want to think of it like that. And then of course, with pop, you gotta have the big, crazy hook. This isn't the final hook here. Devon went in and did some additional production, really fine-tuned everything, brought in some more drums. If you're doing popish records, yeah, you definitely want the hook to be big and crazy. And then again, just rinse and repeat. Go back to another verse. Usually in records like this, the second verse will be a little more filled out because you already did a lot of building in the first verse. So the second verse here is going to start with some more drums playing, and then we'll go back into our pre-hook and then hook, and that's pretty much it. So that's a look into a completely different record from Black Hearted. We went from Black Hearted to a crazy pop record, and you can see the difference on how you want to approach structuring your beat depending on the genre, just like I said. So now for the final example I'm going to show you, this is Snuggle Up by Quincy. This one's more of a R&B, up-tempo R&B song here. So for some common ground between the last two that you've seen, we want to keep our intro pretty simple to catch the listener's attention. And most of the time for R&B, the hook is going to come in after the verse. So the verse is going to come in first. Happens most of the time in R&B, and that's because I feel like, you know, R&B records are more progressive. They more so want to build up to a hook. So that's what I did here. Real simple intro. We're going to cut straight into the verse. And now after our verse, of course, this is a R&B record, so as I'm making the beat, I'm like, this needs to have a pre-hook. It's mandatory. So just like in the Colors record, which you just saw, a lot of stuff is going to drop out, and we're going to get real heavy on our chords here, real ambient, just to build up to our big hook here. So you can see there, I'm coming in 16 bars for the verse. This is up-tempo, 100 BPM. 8 bars for our pre-hook, so we got a full pre-hook here. So, as you already guessed, after our pre-hook, our hook is going to drop. This is the big part of the beat. So there goes our hook. That's going to play for 8 bars. So we got verse 16, pre-hook 8, verse 8. So it's almost like you can think of it like a 16-bar hook. I know that sounds crazy long, but for records like this, it works. Songs like this really need to be catchy, and if you got 16 bars of catchiness, you're gonna have a good record. So now introducing something a little new. I have a post after the hook. Not too many songs have posts. R&B, sometimes pop, sometimes hip-hop, not so much. So a post is like, if you think of the pre-hook, we're building up, then you got your hook, and then if you want to come back into the verse, that transition from here to back down here is pretty drastic. So for the post, we just kind of want to smooth it out and then back into the verse. Otherwise, that transition from just being so busy and then coming back down to being simple for the verse, it's just too drastic. You know, you got to smoothen it out with a post, which I did here. But I'll show you right here. So let me highlight. This is our hook, right? This is our 8-bar hook. And then these next 8 bars is going to be my post. You can see I start dropping stuff out. So let's take a look from the end of the hook into the post and then into the second verse, and you can listen to transitions a lot smoother. So just like that, you can hear it smoothened out at the end of the post there, so I could jump back into the verse. So once we got that, I know it's pretty much downhill from there. So I guess the hardest part of structuring is just really just, you know, just getting that verse, that hook in. Maybe if you need a pre-hook. Sometimes if you need a post, you feel like you need a post. Once you got all that, it's pretty much downhill from there. So there goes today's video right there. I hope this video isn't super crazy long. With that being said, I really appreciate you if you made it to the end of this video. I'm sorry if I rambled on too much a little bit, but I really wanted to touch base with you guys on a few different examples just to show you different approaches you can take on structuring your beats depending on the genre and depending on how you feel. So remember, the most important advice I can give you is you have to do what you feel as a producer when you're structuring out a beat here. You got to identify what your goal is for the record, what kind of genre you're making, and most importantly, don't overthink it. You have to do what you feel, because not every record is going to be the same. So you have to understand that. So if you're making a fresh beat from scratch, if it's 100% original, there is no other song just like yours. So you have to really just do what you feel. And as I mentioned previously, There are some formulas you can take that you can use. Go study, the songs that I did. Go study your favorite songs. Identify where the verses are, where the hook is. Is there a pre-hook? Is there a post? You can really learn a lot from those songs, especially if they're like, Billboard top hits. There's a reason why they're up there. They were structured that way to, be the best that they can be. I tried to have a diverse selection of songs here, some, really hip hop and R&B pop, just so you guys can get a feel on my thought process on how I'm structuring these songs out. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave those in the comments for me below. 100% I'm getting back to you. Of course, any more suggestions like what I'm doing right here as today, and then in my mixing video, obviously I didn't go over any new beats. I just really wanted to go into detail with you guys on structuring and mixing. Any more topics you want covered, let me know. 100% I'll do those. Again, I appreciate you if you made it to the end of this video. Leave a thumbs up for me if it helped you, inspired you in any way. I'd really appreciate it. Also subscribe, because I'm going to be back next Sunday, as I'm here every single Sunday dropping videos just like this. And that is all for me today. I will see you next week. I'm out. Peace.